Hello and welcome back to Aubrey Books and Coffee. Please grab your favorite beverage of choice and join me. We're going to be reviewing a ton of books today, so strap in. June was a very, very busy month. I enjoyed it. I had Katie home, summertime, all the good warm feels, right? Although it got really hot, but that's okay. So it did allow for a lot of indoor reading to stay nice and cool, and I'll always take that. So first I ended up finishing Christmas in Plains. Now this one I ended up giving a 3-star to. It was the one that was part of my Trivial Pursuit game I did not get correct, and I actually did enjoy this. I was surprised how much I did. I've not obviously read anything by Jimmy Carter before. It was very personable. It was his personal experiences and various Christmases he had growing up as a boy out in the country. I really enjoyed the perspective. I had no idea just how much work he did in Habitat for Humanity and just some of the memories he made with that. So that was really cool to learn about. And yeah, it was a pretty quick read. It was only about 160 pages, and I would recommend this. Then I finished Blue Lily, Lily Blue. Now this, of course, I gave a 3-star. This is continuing the Raven Boys cycle, and it didn't disappoint. We left off in the previous book with a very sad kind of cliffhanger. We pick back up with this one, and we get a few more answers, but still a lot of questions. So I'm definitely continuing the series, though, and I was definitely not let down, though, by this one. Then I finished In the Hand of the Goddess. Now this, of course, is continuing that Tamora Pierce reading. I ended up giving it a 3-star. Elena. I always enjoy a good series where I can really get attached to the characters, and her friendship in particular with this young man was just bittersweet. It's a nice little love triangle going on in this book, and at the ending I was happy and I was satisfied, so I'm definitely continuing. Then I finished The Maidens. Now this one I gave a 3-star, but it was almost a 2-star because it was nothing like what I expected. From that creepy looking cover and from the premise of what the book said, I don't know, I was expecting more skulls and bones, kind of secret society kind of craziness. Instead, it's actually not a thriller. It's actually more of like a very light mystery. And to me, it was kind of like more psychoanalyzing yourself and others than actually like, I don't know. It was more a story of self-discovery, I guess, for the characters involved. And so I just really wasn't having a great time by the ending, and I was just glad it was over. So it was almost a 2-star, but the writing is still really good. I still really enjoy this author's writing style. So I think that's why I lean towards the 3-star on it. Then I finished, and I'm going to say it wrong, I apologize, Farah Noorzad and the Ring of Fate. This was a NetGalley arc that I got. I appreciate the NetGalley arc. Thank you. I gave it a 3-star. It's a very middle school read. It's cute. It's got adventures and friendships and magic, of course. And it was okay. Nothing that blew me away, but it was all right. I probably will not continue this series, though. Then I finished The Lost Bookshop. This was our book pick for my personal book club, and I'm so glad it was. We had such a good time talking about this throughout the whole month. I gave it a 3-star at the end. There were some themes going on in here that I didn't expect, like infidelity and things like that. That kind of took it away from me a little bit. But I did enjoy that there were 2 different timelines going on. I suspected that there was some kind of a connection, and I'm not going to spoil anything. Just suffice to say, I still got it. There's also, of course, some like abuse that's happening, both verbal and physical, and like institutionalizing somebody who doesn't need it just to prove you can and show your power. All kinds of things like that are kind of oogie and awful, but I really love the bookshop itself, and I think everybody else did too, and we are really glad that we read it. Then I finished The Stolen Heir. This is continuing in Elfheim. This is the new duology. And so the first of that one, or possibly, yeah, I think it's the new duology. I think there's only 2 on that one. But book 4 overall of Elfheim. And I gave it a 3-star, but I didn't like it as much as the original. I really didn't. The Cruel Prince, I really enjoyed that more. Maybe it's because there's only a very, very brief mention of characters from the past, and I just didn't care as much about the new characters that are in this series. I am still going to read the next one. I do want to finish it, but I'm less excited about it, I guess, is what I'm saying. Then I finished The Fallen Star. This is, of course, the next Star Wars book. I gave it a 3-star. It was a great continuation of what's been going on. I'm telling you, the Nihil just need to like die in a fiery ball of death. I mean, I don't know if you can tell because I try to hold back. But I really, really hate these guys. Like, really hate them. Anyway, moving on. I can't wait to read the next one in the series. Then I finished A Dawn of Onyx. Now, this one had been highly recommended by Cassidy from Covers with Cassidy, and it's a fantasy, a romantasy, if you will. So glad I read it. I'm definitely continuing the series. It was so good. Chef's kiss. 5 stars. It's on my shelf. I'm keeping it. And by the way, the author will be at a Polycon. So I will also be getting a signature and hopefully a gorgeous edition of this book because it was so good. And I am 100%, like I said, continuing it. I really appreciated that there was actually low spice. I like it better that way, guys. And there was really good family dynamics and the friendships were really beautiful and in depth. The characters were really well fleshed out for me. I enjoyed the most adorable little pet name that he gave her, which was Little Bird. And every time he said that, my heart just swole. So yeah, needless to say, highly recommend. I'm 100% there for the next book. And I really think you guys ought to pick it up too. Next, I finished The Voices in the Snow. This one I gave a 3-star. I love Darcy Coates, especially since if I'm going to do anything scary, this is the person that scares me to death every Halloween when I have to read those books. However, this one was actually a letdown, especially for a Darcy Coates. I did 3 stars because once again, love the author's, voice and the way that she writes. So I'm all on board with that. But ooh, it was rough. It was rough, guys. This felt very disjointed. It felt like there were too many things trying to happen. And I wish that Darcy Coates had just stuck with one main theme for the book. It's a very end of days. Something's happening, like an apocalypse is about to begin, but mixed with an almost alien kind of vibes. And it ended with a very unbelievable twist that felt like Darcy Coates was just wanting to throw one more thing in. It just didn't do it for me at all. This was almost a 2-star. It's actually not going to be a Darcy Coates that I recommend to anybody, but I'm glad I read it. It's done. I can move on. Then I finished Heartstopper Volume 2. Oh my gosh! Oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. 5 stars. So freaking cute. Nick and Charlie are just the freaking cutest, aren't they? Oh my gosh. I don't want to say too much because it would give away what happened in Volume 1, but suffice to say we're continuing their journey. And it really was very heavy on the theme of embracing who you are. Even if you don't get support from people you thought were friends, move on to different set of friends and just kind of being honest with how you're feeling. And it was just so freaking cute. Highly recommend this series. If you haven't tried it yet, you need to. Then I finished Bride. Now, I was so excited because I love Allie Hazelwood, and normally I do just the straight romance with Allie Hazelwood. This is the first dipping into fantasy. It did not let down. I gave this 5 stars, chef's kiss. It's also on my bookshelf, and I hope to get a beautiful copy at some point because it was just so, so good. An arranged marriage and kind of enemies to lovers kind of vibe, but he's also wanting to be protective of her. Like, it was just so cute. I loved it. I loved it. I loved it. Basically, I think the only thing that I had as a takeaway was kind of the politics of it. At times, the politics felt like, okay, we need something a little more substantial here just to give them another hurdle they have to come over. But it was still so, so good. I highly recommend this book. I adored it. Then I finished How to Become the Dark Lord and Die Trying. Now, the title alone, I knew this was going to be great humor. I was cracking up several moments of actual laughing out loud while I was reading this, several one-liners I hope to keep and use on myself in the future. So funny. It felt very much like a video game where when the main character would die, they would have to restart. But it was good. It was good overall. I gave it a 3 stars because In some places, it was just extremely, we'll say, raw. So prepare yourselves, look for any trigger warnings, be aware of that. Also in places, it seemed like it was just kind of repetitive, which again, you're restarting the day. I get it. But it just got to where I'm like, for the love of God, nobody kill this character so we can get to the end. But it was okay. It was okay. I'm glad I read it. I don't know. With the way that it ended, I don't know it pulled me in enough that I would want to continue in the series or not. So up to you. I would still, I think, recommend for a very specific audience, but up to you. But definitely hilarious. Then I finished Age of Legend. This is, of course, book 4 in this series. I enjoy it. I gave it a 3-star because this time it was a lot more slow plot progression, but there was a lot more buildup. I can tell that the next 2 books are going to be wrapping everything up, so they're kind of setting the stage for that. But I still had a good time and highly recommend this series to everybody. Then I finished Dust. Thank God this trilogy is over. I gave it a 3-star because, again, I like Hugh Howey's writing style. I do. I always score higher when I'm not miserable reading it. I actually like the writing style. It's just really slow or really repetitive or something like that. So I give it a 3-star. I don't know I would recommend this series to anybody unless they're willing to have a lot of repetition, dual timelines going on. If they're okay getting introduced to new characters in book 2 that have nothing to do with what you've read so far. And then book 3 to feel like they're wrapping some stuff up, or for the most part, aside from the very, very ending, it's very repetitive, like very repetitive. You don't feel like you're really getting anywhere for a book that's almost 500 pages long. So take that as you will. Then I finished Spark of the Everflame. I am so glad I finally got to this. Penn Cole will also be at a Polycon. Can't wait to get a signature and a beautiful edition of this series. I know book 2 is already out. I'm 100% continuing this series. I've heard that book 2 is even better than book 1, and I did really enjoy book 1. I gave it a 3 stars, but that's a high 3-star, almost a 4-star, only because there was times where it felt very, for lack of a better term, I guess, juvenile. And this is an adult series. And so I was kind of disappointed when it would seem like we're following her and then she gets kind of wishy-washy, not strong character like I like. And then it almost seems like she's young 13, 14 versus what she's supposed to be as a young adult. So for me, it kind of took me out of the story a little bit, but I heard that these kinds of things are going to be fleshed out and all the little holes there are in the plot and stuff get fleshed out really well in book 2. So I'm excited to see that. Now, I know this is not going to be a popular opinion. I'm so sorry. I finished Her Majesty's Royal Coven and I gave it a 2-star. I know. Don't at me, okay? Not every book is for everybody, okay? Remember that. For this, I don't know. I guess I was expecting like assassins, but they're also witches. And I was expecting sisterhood. And I was expecting cloak and dagger and some royals. And I guess things like that. Instead, this felt very slow, very boring in places. It felt repetitive. There were certain social issues that were coming up, and it just got to the point where it honestly felt to me like the author was wanting to highlight social issues that are going on. So instead of it feeling like a natural progression in the story, it felt like, bam, we're going to go talk about this social issue now and try to tie it into the fact they're witches, or try to tie it into the fact that they have this warlock they're trying to control. And then, oh, you know what? This is a popular social issue. Bam! Let's talk about that social issue now and try to wrap it into the witch stuff. So for me, it felt very, very non-smooth, I guess is the word I'm looking for. It felt very much like it was just an avenue to talk social issues, which that's fine. Do you? But for me, I wanted a story. I have no problem with social issues being highlighted. I think that's beautiful if it's done well. I didn't want just a book that felt like a pamphlet of things to look out for and to have a broader mind on. So if that makes any sense. So again, don't at me. This is my personal opinion. The writing was okay, but not enough to go higher than 2-star for me on this one. Then I finished The Poison Blade. Now, this was one of those read or get it off my shelf. I'm glad I I read it. It was good. It was a 3-star for me. I'm not actually continuing this series. This is book 2 in the Court of Fives series, I believe is what it's called. The writing was pleasant. The characters just unfortunately fell flat for me. They felt very, very shallow. And I kind of want more development in my characters. And the plot progression was extremely slow for me. So, and again, it could be because it's book 2. You know, there's always a curse of the book 2. But for me, it was enough that I'm like, I'm glad I read it. But nah, I think I'll pass for continuing on this series. Then I finished Seasons of the Storm. This one was the literary that I needed to do with the, S's going on there. And I liked it. I gave it a 3-star. It felt very Romeo and Juliet kind of vibes with magic and friendship. And it was really kind of cool because you had these characters that represented the seasons and they were supposed to kill each other, but they didn't want to kill each other because they were falling in love with each other. And it's really cute. And they actually snuck in an overarching plot that makes me want to continue this series as well. So don't expect anything earth-shattering, groundbreaking, but it was cute. If you just want a solid, cute story like that, I do recommend this one. Then I finished Death at Morning House. This was also a NetGalley. I gave it 2 stars. I don't know. This is the author that actually wrote the Truly Devious series, if you've read that one. I enjoy the writing style, but it was so slow and it was so convoluted. I got extremely confused in places. Never really felt like I was attached to the characters. I never could really understand where they were coming from or what their motivations for what they were doing. And I really thought maybe it was just me. So before I even submitted my review, I looked at some of the others, and the ones that scored the 1 and 2 stars like I was thinking were saying the exact same thing. So obviously there's an audience for this that have no problem at all, and they're giving it 4 and 5 stars. If you find yourself a lot of times aligning with the way I interpret books and things, this may be one that's a little confusing for you. So just go into it knowing that and expecting that, and maybe you'll get blown away, kind of lower those expectations. So I was disappointed because the cover is gorgeous and I do like this author, but unfortunately it was a miss for me. Then I finished House of Marianne. This one was also a NetGalley. I am excited for that. I love getting these. And again, the cover was gorgeous, but as you can see, I gave it a 2-star also. I don't know what's going on. Sometimes NetGalleys are winners, sometimes not so much. In this case, this is the author that wrote the Wings of Ebony series. You know that I enjoyed that series, so I like the writing style. However, once again, the progression of the plot was extremely slow. It had a lot of repetitiveness. At times, the writing was actually kind of cringy, not at all like the Wings of Ebony series. So I didn't know what happened, if maybe the editor didn't catch some things, because this is an advanced copy, so it may be smoothed out when they come out and traditionally publish it, or if the author's trying a new writing style. I don't know, but it didn't feel as smooth as Wings of Ebony to me. And I was really kind of, disappointed in that. Some of the one-liners that they gave were just very cringy. And I don't know, at the very ending, it got really weird. It was just a very confusing, convoluted ride for me. So I just wasn't into it. It just wasn't for me at all. And again, the characters, I didn't feel myself really getting attached to at all. And they felt kind of one-dimensional to me. So again, it just wasn't a winner, unfortunately. Then I finished Rage and Ruin. I gave this 4 stars. You know I love me my Jennifer Armentrout. Sometimes her books are only 3-star for me, but most of the time they're 4 and 5. And this was one of those that was really, really good. This is the sequel to Storm and Fury, so this is book 2, but it did not fall into the curse of book 2. It actually gave us so much more of the feels. So I loved it. I love the relationship between Trinity and Zane. I love some answers that we got, the fights that they had to do, and I just can't wait to actually read book 3 in this series as well. Then I finished The Dangerous Ones. Now this one came in Once Upon a Book Club's book box. So as always, I'm going to say, go watch that video and then you can see a full review on it. But for those of you who've already watched the video, for those of you who were on my sprints when I was finishing this, oh my gosh, 5 stars. It's now on my shelf. It's up at the top so you don't see it in this particular video clip, but loved it. Absolutely loved it. Highly recommend it. And highly recommend you all read it as well. Then I finished Dragon Fruit. Now this one was a book of the month pick for me. I was so excited. Unfortunately, it fell way flat for me. A 2-star. And some of that 2-star may be harsh because I was so disappointed because I went in just expecting to absolutely love this fantasy, kind of vibes and dragons. I mean, come on. Unfortunately, Hanalei is the main character, and she's chasing this dragon fruit, which are actually eggs of the sea dragon, by the way. But she has no problem, going ahead and chasing down these dragons and stealing their babies and killing the babies so they can eat the babies and get these, wishes and powers and stuff. No problem at all with that. There's so much animal cruelty, so much animal harm, including pets that they have. Things like that it kept taking me back out of the story where I'm like, okay, I'm trying to like you guys. I'm trying to like you guys. And then towards the end, of course, we are getting a little bit softer, but we're still pursuing these. It's like, oh, come on. You literally are understanding the dragons now and you're still okay with taking their babies. I just could not wrap my mind around that. So I will say they have an interesting magic system where they've got these tattoos on their bodies that can turn into animals that kind of help support them. And that's how they kind of channel that magic. And it actually made me think a lot of, in the movie Elektra, if you've ever watched that, the guy that had the tattoos, the wolf would come just bounding out of his chest. So anyway, that was kind of a fun thing to picture in my mind. But outside of that, I'm going to go with a no thank you. And I'm not continuing anything else in this series. Next, I finished Darker by 4. This was the gorgeous edition that came in my very last Fairy Loot box. Unfortunately, it got a 2-star from me. I know, some people absolutely adore this book, but hey, it means that gorgeous edition's available whenever we do our next drawing, everybody. For me, it was just really slow, really boring. There really wasn't a lot that happened. I mean, I don't want to ruin the book, but I could literally summarize it for you in less than 2 minutes. And on top of it, the main character was kind of wimpy. I mean, she's supposed to be ahead of the curve and ahead of her class and really powerful. But the very first fight she comes up into, she gets we'll say neutralized within a minute and a half. Really? And then another character who has no previous experience with magic whatsoever gets the magic. That's not giving anything away. It says on the back of the book, her power transfers by accident. Gets this power, but somehow is able, with having no prior experience holding the magic or training with it, to completely save the day. Because why not? And it just felt really weird. And their relationship seemed very sweet. And I was trying to give it a higher rating based solely on that. But just some of the stuff that was happening, you really had to suspend disbelief altogether. It just didn't even make sense for me. I just really did not like it. I did not have a good time. I'm sorry, everybody. I tried. Then I finished One Perfect Couple. This one I gave 3 stars. I like Ruth Ware. There's usually a lot of thriller going on. In this instance, however, not much in the way of real thriller. This one felt more to me like they're stuck and stranded on a deserted island. Some bad things are happening, and several of the guys in these little couples that are there are abusive a-holes. And that pretty much summarizes the entire book for you. Obviously, I'm not giving away anything that, would actually spoil the book, but that's all it really boiled down to. And again, I appreciate the message. I appreciate the author wrote it in a very good way. And I did appreciate that, but I was expecting a thriller, So for me, it was kind of a letdown, and that's why it's only a 3-star, and it would be a low 3-star at that. Then I finished Just for the Summer. This is actually my first Abby Jimenez, and what an introduction. Technically, I think this is book 2 or 3 in this series, but they said you could read each one on its own. I am so glad I started with this one. I gave it a 4-star. I really had a great time. I was cracking up. I love the relationship that they have. I love the jokes that they have, their little inside jokes and stuff. I thought it was absolutely phenomenal. I thought it was very well done. It does deal with some instances of child neglect and psychological stuff and mental, need for mental health and things like that, which I really appreciate. The only reason it wasn't a 5-star for me, and I mean the only reason, is it really felt like it was 100 pages too long. It clocks in around 430 pages. And for me, if it had stopped around the 300, 350 mark, it would have been chef's kiss 5-star. But it kept going and going and going and going and hammering home the need for people to actually say when they need help and stuff. And I appreciate that, but for me, it was just a bit too much. I would have been okay 100 pages ago and gotten the message just fine. And then it would have been a really cute, nice, story for me. But that's just my personal opinion. And again, still a 4-star. I mean, that shows you how good it was. And it gave me the feels, the overall theme of Good Luck Chuck, if you've ever seen that movie. I hope you have. It's hilarious, not for children. However, it's the same kind of theme where, the guy feels like he has this curse where he's with a woman and then the very next person that she meets after breaking up with him is her soulmate. And so it's so cute. It's just so cute. I have to admit, everybody in there, even the little side characters that are their friends, the side characters that are his siblings, are so cute. The author really put a lot of effort into these characters and developing them. And I just fell in love with the whole cast. And I think you guys would too. Then I finished The Book That Wouldn't Burn. I know this doesn't surprise anybody because the last sprint of the month, just a few days ago, I was reading this during our sprints. I did end up finishing it, and I said it would probably be the last one, and it is. Had a great time with it. Mark Lawrence, once again, didn't disappoint. I gave this 4 stars only because with Mark Lawrence, and I said this in the sprints too, and I don't know how to say it the right way, so forgive me if I offend you. I am never somebody that wants to offend anybody. I'm just also not always that great at wording things, so I hope you understand what I mean by this with all the love in my heart. But basically, he writes like a guy. And that's nothing to be said negatively because he writes great, stabby, strong female characters. And I appreciate that so much. So does Brandon Sanderson. These are incredible writers that know how to write women and write them well and respectfully. And I thank you, gentlemen. But for this instance, because of the way that his writing style is with setting up his world, which man, can he develop a world. Amazing. I want to live in that library that was featured in this book. I want to be with these characters that were featured in this book. And I'm 100% continuing the series to do the next one. I know it's got a gorgeous blue cover, but I can't even tell you the title right now. But I am 100% continuing this series. And kind of like Book of the Ice trilogy, I really enjoy the world building, really enjoy everything in the story. It's just there's times where it feels like it's just a lot. So I don't see myself reading it again. And so because of that and that alone, I do 4-star over 5. I don't want it on my shelf. It's not one I could see myself rereading. Whereas there's something about the way Brandon Sanderson does his worlds that I could. The Stormlight Archive series, I could 100% reread those and have no qualms about it. So it's just a difference between the two writing styles. That's all it is. I just really enjoy Brandon Sanderson's style a little bit more than Mark Lawrence, but he does great fantasy. Highly encourage you guys to pick this up. Sorry, that was a lot. All right, so now real quickly, the DNFs that I had to do, because of course we did unfortunately have some DNFs. The first one was Gimmicks and Glamour. I wanted to like this. I really, really did, especially since it would support a indie author. However, it felt very crude, like the language in here, very inappropriate. And I get that's probably how high schoolers are talking, but I didn't need it thrown in my face all the time. So it felt like there wasn't a lot of clean narration. It was just a lot of crude discussions and slangs and things like that being thrown. And there was drugs and no actual magic was happening for the longest time. And I just, after my usual, 20-30% in, I'm like, I'm done. Life's short. So I quit on it and I had to DNF it. I also DNF'd The Teacher. This was a NetGalley one that I got and I was so not into it. I had to DNF it. It was very slow, not my writing style at all. I thought it was really boring. But again, obviously it's a popular mystery series for a reason, so it could be up your alley, just definitely wasn't up mine. Last but not least, my walking that I am doing, I am starting to pick it up now that it's summer. I've only got about 1,500 miles more to go. I can do it. We're only halfway through the year, you guys. I can do it. I have faith. Thank you all for being here. I look forward to giving you a new TBR game tomorrow. Please like, subscribe, send your friends, and I will see you all next time.